All right, welcome to another episode of the NFL Outdated Cover 2 series. This episode, we are going into the college ranks, and we're going to do the Michigan Wolverines football, and I am joined by Marisa Tigney, host of Heard That podcast. How are you doing?
I'm excellent today. Thank you so much for inviting me here. How are you?
I am doing well. Any day I can talk about football is a good day for sure,
Oh, this is our
and
season right here. Like, this is the most wonderful time of the year.
it really is. I love fall. I am a Hawkeye, so I love the Big Ten. This year, it's been a little bit down, obviously offensively and all that. But when I look at, I told you offline, I spent a year in Cadillac, Michigan, and I've got friends that are huge Wolverine fans. So it is always interesting to hear about a fellow Big Ten team, as long as it's not Ohio State.
There you go. Absolutely.
It's interesting. I mean, we talked about the Lions in a bye week, and I just there's no way I could ever cheer for Ohio State. I mean, and I am a Bear fan, and it's been difficult with Justin Fields being an Ohio State alum, but I'm a little bit hopeful for him. We can kind of get into some of the NFL a little bit later, but really I want to get into Michigan. It's really been a resurgence the last couple of years. And
Yeah.
so when you look at, this team and obviously, looking at, back the offseason with Harbaugh flirting with the NFL, flirting with the Vikings, what do you kind of see this resurgence as? I mean, is this going to be sustainable for Michigan as a whole going forward?
I think so. And thank you, number one, for inviting me on your platform. I appreciate that. I love what Harbaugh is doing right now. Here's the thing that Michigan fans have to understand. This man, besides the 1 year that was a COVID year in 20, has given us winning seasons. Not so much great on the bowl end, unfortunately, and hopefully that will turn around because now we're bowl eligible. But we want more than that. You know what I mean? So him finally getting over that hump and beating Ohio State after 5 tries. Ohio State, and I know you and I do not have a like for that team, but they are loaded and they're out. They have their key players out and still are loaded. So that's a whole squad right there that Michigan will have to take care of. But what Harbaugh is doing is having confidence in the players, and he's having confidence in the coaches. And what this team is doing, is it the same defensive strong team that we have seen last year? No. But these young guys are starting to get it in the starting to turn, and they're getting challenged. And here's the thing, the top 25 to me, it's rankings, it happens, but you and I have seen it throughout all of this, is that any team at any time can pull the stunner. And they're going in not with guns blazing and not afraid to do anything whatsoever. They're playing like nothing to lose. And so Michigan being 4 and now dropping to 5 because of the struggle that they had against Indiana in that first half, they just gotta be on it. And Harbaugh I'm hoping that he's letting this team just play to their ultimate full potential and letting them unleash. And some of the games that I've been watching between JJ and our offense and some of the defense, just like at times when the play is happening, they're hesitant to make that. You're supposed to go for it, or you're supposed to throw it down the field, but it just seems like you're on the ball too long, or the offense is and JJ's not jiving on certain points. So just I feel that if they allow them to like unleash a little bit and do what they could do, we could see a very dangerous Michigan squad. Starting with Penn State this weekend, which is going to be a huge test. Not saying the other teams, Iowa, Indiana, they were tests. This is huge for this team. Number one, Penn State being ranked in the top 10. They're playing at the Big House. We all mazed out. We're going to see what this team is really made of with James Franklin's squad coming in this weekend.
Yeah, and go ahead and you touched on a little bit the quarterback situation. Obviously, coming in, it was kind of a dual situation between Cade McNamara and J.J. McCarthy. But has McCarthy really kind of taken the reins there then?
McCarthy has the reins of it. We saw a little bit of that last season when he came in when Michigan was dominating certain games and McNamara was the starter. So McCarthy would go in. McCarthy's quick on his feet. He's got that arm. Like, he reminds me of Vince Young when he played for Texas, where he just had that arm that just completely can unleash and had the speed to go with it. That's what JJ McCarthy kind of reminds me of. And so we saw that in the early, like week 1 or week 2 of this season, and McCarthy being that guy. Now, again, people need to realize, especially Michigan fans, McCarthy took us a lot, carried us a lot into the Big Ten playoffs, into, us doing going into the championship playoff. Georgia was better. Absolutely. They had all weapons everywhere and they just outplayed us. But people need to stop dismissing Mara. I mean, he's really good right now, recovering from an injury. But McCarthy is that guy. He's that stud. I still scratch my head at times. I just can't believe he's a sophomore. And just got so much room for growth and the quarterback spot. So the thing is that even though if JJ, and I hope he does it, if something happens or he has a bad game or goes down or whatever, I think McCarthy still has the tools to make it happen. Now, again, the times that he was put in when we had a substantial lead on opposing teams this year, McCarthy, was doing some uncharacteristic mistakes, but I still believe that he has some football in him to do very well if need be, if Harbaugh wants to do that split and, again, something happens to McCarthy. But JJ has impressed me. He's still room for growth. He's green. He's wanting to learn. Again, I talked about his arm strength. I talked about his running ability. I would like to see more of his better decision-making, and I would like to see him throw away the ball when he is, when they are rushing him at the defensive end from these opponents. And I've seen it with Iowa, so Indiana. He just needs to be smart about releasing the ball and letting it go and not taking the sack. So hopefully, again, this is a very good Penn State team that's coming up this weekend. So hopefully they are doing the right thing. And this is a well-rested Penn State team because they're coming up with their bye. So hopefully we'll see them correct the mistakes from the previous game when they played Indiana. What went wrong that first half? How come they couldn't get it going? I mean, it was slow, drawn out, dragged out process for them to be, at a tie, and then Indiana just literally taking advantage of the offense. So hopefully they correct those mistakes going into the weekend.
Well, speaking of carrying the team and just, having that greatness, I mean, Blake Corum, I mean, he is probably right up there with some of the best running backs at Michigan all time. Yeah. Talk about, what he does well and, maybe even projecting him into the NFL eventually.
I'm going to say this right now, Blake Corum for Heisman. Okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, just incredible. We saw when they played UConn, 5 touchdowns out of him. He tied Hassan Haskins, who was outstanding in his right last year for Michigan during that Big Ten championship run, right? So Blake Corum has done everything that a great running back can do. I see him as a first rounder, easy will be picked up. And him, I wrote down his stats on a few notes because I was just amazed at where he is at right now. 11 touchdowns he's got under his belt. 5 of them that he got at the UConn game, and all the carries that he's had. If he decided, you know what, thank you so much, Jim Harbaugh, coaching staff, University football, go blue, the fans forever, I'm going to go into the NFL, I wouldn't be mad at that at all because he's ready. In my opinion, he's ready.
Well, when you look at that as well, I mean, the offense then, with JJ McCarthy and then with Corum, what about the wide receiver group? I mean, it looks like Ronnie Bell and Roman Wilson have more stats. Cornelius Johnson was supposed to be up there. Talk about that group and who might be the best NFL prospects of that group.
I really like that Cornelius Johnson was utilized last weekend against Indiana with the 2 touchdowns. I didn't realize I took his quickness for I took it for granted. I realized how good he is when it comes to right there in the red zone play. Ronnie Bell is so good to see him back. It really is. Being injured last year and being, just trying to keep his spirits up, and he picked up where he left off, not last year, but the year back behind that, just coming in and being utilized. 30 carries right now, 390 yards and 1 touchdown that he has so far. He's starting to feel the form. I think that it is so far his best year from when we saw him come on the scene, and he continues to get better. So if it was between these three, I would say Ronnie Bell has a slight edge over Roman Wilson. I just want to see Cornelius Johnson more utilized because he can carry that ball. He can run. He has that speed. The beautiful thing about the Michigan wide receivers is that they can run. That JJ is utilizing his wide receiver core and the talents and the weapons that he has, and he's talked about that in the post conference after games, and has really given credit to his receivers that have been in there, especially this last one where they finally turned it around in the second half against Indiana. So the NFL, I mean, literally any of these guys could go on there and make it happen. My big thing is, can they stay healthy? Like I said, Ronnie Bell coming off of the injury from last year that took him out all season. Roman Wilson right now, he didn't play last week. He has, I believe it was a hamstring injury. I can't remember what he had. Hopefully that he'll get rested and, be involved in this game for sure, but we'll see. And if not, they have that bye week before we go and host Sparty. So any of these guys can definitely make it happen in the NFL. Health has to be the big, huge thing when it comes to them.
Yeah, and when you look at the tight end prospects as well, I mean, I've seen Eric All kind of up there as well, but has he been healthy as well? Or
Eric All has missed the last 3. No status on him if he's going to play this weekend. But Luke Schoonemaker has been that guy. 6'6", 245, 250, just a massive body. He reminds me of a young tight end at Miami, Greg Olsen.
That's big praise.
Greg Olsen, that's now an analyst in the studios now. He just reminds me of him, how strong he is, how JJ utilizes him in the pocket when he's back in the pocket, and just see Schoonemaker. And Schoonemaker is that big of a guy. And I didn't realize how quick he is. Like, literally, when defenders try to bring him down, it has to be about 3, 4, 5 guys to bring him down. I mean, he is big body, that's quick, that's solid, that can make the plays. And he has done that in almost every game that he's been in. Touchdown too. I'm really impressed for him stepping in for Eric All. So it's great to see the depth of the tight ends comes to that aspect for, Eric All being down, Luke Schoonemaker going in there and just basically just making the position his. And he has been in several of the games so far. So really going to need him in all of his amazing strength and see what he can do this weekend when it comes to Penn State. But I'm really impressed with him stepping in for Eric All.
The tight end position is so important in college and NFL. I mean, when you look at just that safety blanket for quarterbacks, especially young quarterbacks, I think is important too. And I just, obviously you're a Michigan fan, but what college team is tight end? You just want
to say, I'm sorry, the tight end.
Tight end university. Hoping you would say between Miami and Iowa. It's definitely Iowa, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, listen, you're the host of this show. I got to go with Iowa.
Appreciate that.
This is Big Ten country. We had a coach that decided to dip out on our squad and go to Miami. I will not say his name on this platform, but Iowa all the way, of course.
That's why I love tight ends, and I love that, going into the NFL, going into, looking at some of these players, and everyone's now kind of in the NFL looking for that next, big body tight end that can block, that can, catch, that can do it all. And when you look at, prospects then on the other side of the ball, what are some of the key defensive players for Michigan that are going to maybe hopefully carry them the rest of the season and then maybe even look for their prospects in the NFL?
Defense right now with these core guys that we have, they're doing the job, but again, they're not the strength of what I saw and what many Michigan fans saw last year with our defensive class, with Aiden Hutchinson, with David Ojabo. Those two guys tandem, hand in hand, like literally was just incredible for our defense. We got Mike Sanisteril, who is starting to, turn the page and do very well. DJ Turner, Jalen Harrell, Rod Moore, Michael Barrett, those guys are starting to week by week get it. My big thing is for them to get it quicker. When it's like out the box, we need them to make those defensive stops, to make better decision makers and not pick up the silly penalties. I mean, we know Big Ten refs be Big Ten reffing and call some ridiculous stuff. I mean, you do wrong, you're going to get a flag. If you walk away wrong, you're going to get a flag. We see it in the NFL. We see it now in college. But these guys are a great young talent. They have been getting tested the past several weeks. They're going to get tested to the fullest this weekend. They have to come out the box and make sure that they are doing their positions well. The prospects for me is too early to tell because of the fact I want to see more out of them the rest of this season. Mike Sanisteril is starting to become a person that is just a turnaround talent. Has made some very key defensive plays in the past couple of games. DJ Turner, I just need him to stop making the careless mistakes and getting cooked when it is the opponent's wide receiver. And I've seen him do well, but I've seen him just basically get cooked. So hopefully he will turn that around. And, again, these guys are starting to come into their own. I just want them to make sure that they are on all cylinders with the rest of the schedule that I'm looking at. I see everybody is challenging them. I don't see it as, this game we should win by 30 and this game is going to be hard. Every game is going to be challenging. It's one game at a time. They blew out UConn, but these unranked teams, again, it was an unranked Iowa, unranked Indiana. They're coming on the road where it has been a challenge for Michigan in the past. These teams are playing like they have nothing to lose. So it doesn't matter if it's in the big house or they're on the road at the opponent's stadium. They just got to make sure the defense, especially, have to be on all cylinders. And I like where this defense is going. They just got to play tough all 4 quarters.
Would you say that their strength then is their secondary?
Oh yeah, for sure. If not the same strength of secondary that I saw last year with our core, it's going to be pushed really to the test this week. We'll see how that secondary holds up. We'll see how our defensive line, our DT, our DE, how all of them are going to hold up against this. Now, mind you, Sean Clifford, I thought he was already gone. I mean, he seemed like he's a 10th year senior. I don't know how he's still with this team, but he's still there. And it's basically, to me, watching Penn State so far in their games, it's like a 2-man tandem between him and I can't believe this kid is a freshman, Nicholas Singleton, I believe his name is. But he is an outstanding running back and has basically just been torching the defense alone between those two. And I can't take anything away from Sean Clifford because he's really good. And so we just can't take that lightly going in this weekend and, the rest of the season. We just got to make sure that we are on it completely this weekend. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a really tight, close game. I wholeheartedly believe we're going to win, but it's going to be where, what did you learn this week in the past several weeks? What did you see on tape? What did you see on film that didn't work the times that you thought it was going to work, and you're improving on it now? What can we do to make that happen, to go in there and just give Penn State all that we can handle? That's what I want.
Yeah, and you look at, even beyond this game and look at the season, there have been high hopes for this season, obviously with last season. I mean, lost some key players. What are your expectations the rest of the way? And then would it be possible to get 2 Big Ten teams in the Final Four?
I would love 2 Big Ten teams in the Final Four. I don't see that happening. I'll get to that in a second. the rest of the way is potential wins for Michigan. It's going to be really tough playing in the shoe because, again, Ohio State is loaded. They didn't have Jackson Smith-Njigba for a couple of weeks and still was running over defenders. If you look at all of their wins that they had, the only tough win that gave them a challenge pretty much now is a wash was Notre Dame week 1. And we saw what happened to Notre Dame when they went back home to try to regroup. They got shocked by Marshall, right? So Ohio State, what Coach Day is doing with this team, CJ Stroud is basically the team is playing with an anger chip on their shoulder because they were expected to be in the Big Ten championship. They were expected to win that, and they were expected to be in the top 4, and none of that happened. So you're seeing it that as they're taking it out on all of their opponents, laying a 40-piece, 50-piece on all of these opponents except Notre Dame. I mean, that's going to be a very tough Thanksgiving weekend for Michigan, and it would not surprise me if the outcome is where Ohio State wins the East. I still got Minnesota. Minnesota had a very interesting loss to Purdue after coming up and winning big against Michigan State. Surprising how horrible they played. I still have them coming out of the West. So, yeah, that's my sleeper out of there. But I just, it's interesting to hear all the media outlets, and I'll say this, and I'll go into something else that you just asked me. It's interesting to hear that media outlets go after Michigan and say they have a cupcake schedule, their schedule's not tough enough, they shouldn't be in the top 10, they shouldn't be in the 4. I mean, we fell down to 5. Granted, the AP saw something, we were struggling, and, we're number 5, so be it. Same thing with Alabama. They finally said, oh, well, let's stop flipping Georgia and Alabama 1 and 2 and finally drop Alabama 1 to 3. Right now, Bryce Young, is he going to be back with the shoulder injury? We shall see. Even though their backup quarterback is pretty good in his own right.
Before you get into that, I wanted your point about Michigan with the cupcake schedule. It was interesting on game day, and I don't always watch game day, but I saw this week, and Desmond Howard was really going in on Ohio State, and obviously being a Michigan guy and all that, and about Ohio State's cupcake schedule when they were going to play someone real, and so that was interesting to see, kind of back and forth, and a lot of times obviously you try to in the media you try to be like in your emotions in check, but that was interesting to see that, and there always is that Ohio State Michigan kind of rivalry there.
Because you got them on the college game day. You have the bookends. You got Ertz on one end, who's a Ohio guy, through and through, and you have Desmond, who even though we had that horrible 2020 COVID year, was still dedicated to Michigan, even though many of us was like, oh, Desmond, oh no, Joe Milton is not doing that job. He's not doing great, and now Joe Milton has transferred on, to a different squad. I think he's at Tennessee. But yeah, here's the thing. When you see these teams play, of course you want your favorite team to win. Of course you do. If you got all the weapons, you have talent, you have your quarterback that's that guy, you have your defense that's amazing, you have your kicker. Shout out to Jake Moody for just being clutch money every single week. If you got the pieces in place and everything else, of course, but if your team is missing some key components, if they're not getting it, if the playbook seems like that it's like all in English and this it's like they're understanding English, but literally the playbook to them is like all in German. Basically, they're not getting it. Then they're not going to get it. And it's okay to say, you know what? I don't really want my team to win, but you know what? This team that they're coming against away from the big house, man, they're going to have some problems. It's okay to say that. You know what I mean? So Michigan's schedule, anybody could be anybody, but I just feel like every single time I turn on a sports outlet, I'm listening to a podcast, I'm seeing someone stream, it's constant attacks. I don't know if it's constant attacks on Harbaugh because many people are not fans of him, whatever, that's their own prerogative, or just Michigan in a whole. I don't know what it is. The team is doing what they're doing to win. They're 6-0. They've been challenged every week. They're getting a bigger challenge this weekend. Michigan State, Harbaugh the last 2 years hasn't beat under Mel Tucker's regime, the $96 million man. We got to see if that can happen in the Big Ten. I mean, even though Sparty is struggling, what Sparty team is going to show up at the Big House? Again, you can't take those things for granted. You know what I'm saying, Andy? So these teams, again, are coming in there. We're seeing it week after week. These teams that are unranked are coming in and playing like they got nothing to lose. And I think the teams that are ranked are sometimes taking them for granted. And they can't do that because football, it's a fun sport. It's great to see all these teams that are unranked coming in the ranks, but the same message for every single team that is involved. You cannot take anybody or any team for granted. You have to come in there and play the football that you were taught, that you were known at, that just put all of their sweat and tears in and play 4 quarters lights out, period.
Yeah, I mean, when as podcasters, as media fans, it's easy to kind of look at teams, and the teams that have been there before kind of get the benefit of the doubt. Ohio State just always will, because they are Ohio State, and obviously when they've got the top talent, CJ Stroud, when they got all of that in wide receivers and all that, they're going to be up there. Alabama's going to be up there. Now Georgia is, all of that. But it took a little, Georgia had to prove it, to get up there. And obviously they did. And Michigan has, proven it. But they've kind of, haven't, maybe taken that extra step. And when you look at this season and they have that opportunity to take that step, they have that talent. You're right. Week in and week out, it's going to be a test, because that is the Big Ten. And right now, the Big Ten doesn't get as much, credit, obviously, as the SEC, as some of these other teams. But Michigan has that talent. If they would say lose to Ohio State, that's their only loss. Do you see them getting into that Final Four? Because if Ohio State's undefeated, they're in there. If Michigan loses, do you see them in there? Or maybe even flip, say Michigan's in there and Ohio State loses to Michigan. Are they both going to be in there because of that quote unquote good loss?
I don't see both of them being in there if they do lose to each other, if it happens to be that, because you have a dangerous Tennessee team that's coming up there that is wanting people to talk about them. And that's the part I didn't mention. Tennessee is that team that is proving to the voters, the coaches poll, the A poll, that they deserve to be in the top 4. They are absolutely dangerous. And we haven't seen a Tennessee Volunteers team good in a very long time. And week by week, they are getting it. And they have cracked it. I think they're number 6, I believe, or like 7 or 6, one of the. And they are not stopping anytime soon, unless they get by Alabama, because they have them this weekend. And that's going to be a good game, and it's at home. So if Bryce Young is not involved in that and Alabama happens to suffer that loss, I don't see them. I don't see Alabama getting in that top 4. Going back to your question, what you said about Michigan and Ohio State, they both go in undefeated. Either one of them lose to each other, that team is not going to be in the top 4. And so Ohio State is going in there angry from last year with everything that they have to prove. Michigan has to do something. The pressure is all on them to see if they can go back to back and get Ohio State, get to the Big Ten championship, and go beyond. So I would say pretty much the pressure is more on my Wolverines than it is on the guys when it comes to if it gets down to the fact where both of these teams are undefeated.
So I feel like with college football, the start of the season, it's completely different than college basketball. With the NCAA tournament and everything. When you start a season, I feel like there's only a handful of teams that really have the opportunity to get those top 4. It just whether it's pedigree and all of those things, talent. There may be one team that's going to sneak in there, right? If Tennessee does that. But when you look at kind of where we're going in college football, are you a fan of kind of expanding the playoff? Because, as an Iowa fan, last year they were ranked high, but I knew it wasn't going to really happen. When I look at my Iowa team, I love Iowa football and obviously ups and downs. But when I look at Iowa, they're just not a team that has that championship pedigree where they're going to be in that conversation unless by just chance, briefly. So
Mhm.
they don't necessarily, in my opinion, have a chance to be in that top four, to be in the championship
Mhm.
game. So what are your thoughts then kind of on expanding that for some of these other teams to maybe have an opportunity to be in the conversation?
I love it. They brought
Mhm,
that up many times to expand the college playoff. I absolutely love it. I would love to see an 18 playoff.
mhm,
I would really do. Because here's the thing, Andy, is that we're seeing teams that should be in there not be in there.
mhm,
And they're not getting that shot. Um, I want to see, I mean, right now I looked this morning before we started the show today, and I was seeing who are the teams that are undefeated. Coastal Carolina again. It's an undefeated
mhm,
team. And Coastal Carolina has been good for the past three seasons. And
mhm.
why aren't we talking about them? Why aren't we giving them a shot? You know
Or
what I
even
mean?
James Madison is
James
cracked the top
Madison.
25. Yeah.
Exactly. And so these are the teams that, we always have that household name, the Alabamas, the Clemsons, the was Oklahoma, until they forgot to show up against the Red River rivalry against Texas this past weekend. Stunned, couldn't believe that since 1965 is the last time they got shut out. But we're seeing the same household names be in these, Ohio
Mhm,
State. But let's give Coastal Carolina, Chanticleer a shot. When Appalachian State, and I can't believe I'm saying this, like 2006, thanks. Uh, when they were undefeated several times, how come we're not talking about them? Like you said, James Madison. Yeah, I mean, some of these teams deserve an opportunity. We're now seeing Kansas starting to turn around and be good. UCLA, our former running back that now, transferred to UCLA, and what Chip Kelly is doing with that squad, they are dangerous. But are they going to be able to sneak in the top four? You know what I mean? So it's just
mhm.
it's that these teams that are falling short by a game or their strength of schedule. With strength of schedule, I believe is absolutely overrated. It's garbage. It's hooey. I don't care about it.
Mhm.
Is that team good enough to get into the playoffs? Has that team proven a track record this year, this season, to get into the playoffs? That's where the expansion comes into play. I think it needs to be done. It needs to stop being talked about, and it needs to be done hopefully soon, next year, year two, whatever. Make an announcement, breaking news. We're expanding to 8 teams. Let's get this going. Let's get this done. If it gets to 8, if it gets to 12, I don't care. Just make it happen so that we know these good teams where it isn't the same ones every year. Like literally, I feel that there's a
Mhm.
reserve sign for Alabama every time.
Mhm. Yeah.
Automatic.
Yep.
I mean, right? Automatic. I
Yeah.
just feel they have one every year. And again, not discrediting the strength and the talent on that team, because we've seen many of these players go right into the draft and do very well. I'm not discrediting Alabama. But what I'm saying to the powers that be of the NCAA football committee and those that make this happen in the playoff committee, let's look at this and expand this and give those opportunities to those when all is said and done. If James Madison, if Coastal Carolina ends up being undefeated, give them a shot.
Not only giving them a shot at opportunity, but it just makes sense from a marketing perspective, right?
Exactly.
When you look at the NCAA tournament and when every team feels like they have a chance,
Mm-hmm.
even if they don't, I mean that's what you want in getting more eyes on the college football playoff. I mean that
Yeah.
just makes sense because when it's the same teams over and over again, you're not gonna I mean, yeah, I think you're you're going to be paying attention to your team's bowl game, but not as much. I mean, I was watching Iowa versus Kentucky, but I wasn't all that excited. I mean, had they had an opportunity to kind of be in there 8 or 12 teams, whatever it was, then you have more excitement around it, more buzz around
Mhm.
the tournament. And yeah, I mean, obviously talent will win out, but you never know about injuries, right? With this whole Bryce Young thing, we thought, kind of Alabama was going to be, roll this year, but they've really kind of had some challenges, even on defensively. I was kind of
Oh, yeah.
surprised as well,
Very surprised because they struggled against Texas.
yeah, and they've got some, amazing defenders. Like what was it? Will Anderson was supposed to be, a top Heisman contender
Mhm.
even on defense. And so you look at, injuries can play a factor, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong. Obviously, it's not the same as college basketball where one shot can do it, but
Right.
you never know. And just having from a marketing perspective, having more eyes, on the championship tournament for college football it makes sense.
Mhm. Oh, exactly, and I think that's a win-win situation. What you just touched on the marketing aspect of it. I think it's a win-win situation, especially for that potential sponsor. It's the name on bowl, like Emerald's, you know, Outback Bowl or the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl, whatever the case is, an opportunity for those up and coming brands, those brands that want to invest into and be a sponsor of a bowl, to have their name on the marquee, to have their commercials played every 5 minutes or every 5 seconds, literally during, when we go to commercial break. That's gold, and that's more gold for the powers that be in the NCAA. So uh, hopefully that they will do something as far as, again, expanding this, but look at this as a marketing win-win, more money on both sides of it, a partnership, an expansion of a product. Me, the consumer, those are people that I see it on TV and I'm drawn to it. I'm like, listen, sign me up. Let me go to the grocery store right now and buy me 3 bags of Tostito chips and some salsa. I mean, that right there, Chick-fil-A bowl, go and get, some chicken minis and some waffle fries. That right there is absolute gold when it comes to marketing. So hopefully that they look at that and, continue to look at all those parameters, and we see more of the opportunity for these teams that deserve to be in, not get shut out just because it's only 4.
Well, I say
teams.
you touched on, something that can change. Obviously with college football and some college sports, it takes a while to change because a lot of the people, the powers that be, some of the old guys in charge don't
Yeah.
want to change. But the one thing that can change anything and anybody is more money, right?
Mhm.
And that is definitely a possibility. And when you look at more money, talk about what you've seen within Michigan and college football, some of the name and likeness implications for programs and just college football as a whole.
I'm glad that the name and likeness is happening. I'm glad that it was finally passed where these players can get paid. I know people were up in arms, oh, but what about the scholarship? The scholarship is what they get paid. They're not making any money out of the scholarship. I didn't realize that they were getting a cut out of their scholarship. It's not happening.
Mhm.
How they made it happen, I'm very happy with it. I can tell you, out of the ones that have the name and image like this, and I will tell you one thing I don't like about the NIL. I like that some of these young men are giving their NIL money back into the community. For example, Blake
Mm.
Corum did that last year. He purchased Thanksgiving turkeys and handed them out to the people in the community where he was at. That was phenomenal what he did. He decided to pour back into the community with his money. NIL is great if you are, and you can probably correct me if I'm wrong, because I saw something like this when I was following David Ajabo and his journey of NIL, and he was unable to get it because he was not here in the he's not born in the United States. So they don't give it to international players.
Oh.
They only give it to those that are here in the United States. Even though that you play in the United States, his parents are Scotland, or from Scotland. So he had problems getting NIL money, as well as he was doing for Michigan. As popular as he was doing for Michigan, he could not get an NIL. So He had to go
Wow.
around the route, and he had merchandise made, and that was so great. It was selling. I mean, I couldn't even get my hands on the shirt because it sold out so fast. But I just felt that was a bummer for anybody that's an international player that's really good for their team to not get an opportunity to have an NIL. So I don't know if it's been fixed or resolved or brought up to the powers that be to make that happen. And somebody can correct me that's watching the show if somebody knows more about that. But I just saw his post last year, and I will never forget that. And I'm going, what do you mean you're not getting NIL money? That's ridiculous. And so it was like a long chat about that because he is an international player that's playing in the United States. It didn't make sense to me why he couldn't get an opportunity to capitalize on something that was finally passed for these great athletes that are doing very well. I didn't understand why he couldn't capitalize that, as well as other international players that are doing very well. And then since they're not making that big money, they're gonna leave early and go and take
Mm-hmm.
their talents to the NFL.
So that's obviously Saban these college coaches talk about being the wild, wild west, but it's not necessarily the case then. Obviously there are some rules, and I feel like it's not really talked about. And that's probably going to be, in the future, like how do you regulate it and all of that. But, when you look at international players, you would think that they would be able to also get the benefit of this as well. But that's an interesting point that I'd never heard before.
Yeah, he talked about that on his Twitter page, and people are like, well, "What do you mean? I mean, you're good, if not great, to get to the next level, but you should be capitalizing on it now." And it brought in several other players that were not United States that were not making NIL money, which really surprised me and concerned me. The thing that I'm concerned about with the NIL money is, yes, these players are getting it and everything else, and we touched on bowl games. And the thing that concerns me is, okay, we get the bowl season. We should be excited about bowl season. And then you find out certain key players are not going to play for the bowl because they're getting ready for the NFL draft. And I hate I hate that time where you just like, oh, we qualified for my squad qualified for a great bowl. Everybody, are they going to play? Is this person going to play? Is this person going to be healthy enough? Is this person going to be fully invested to play? And then you're seeing them drop out. So you're just like, and then you find out their opponent is someone that's incredible. So, for example, if Michigan ends up playing and then we're without Blake Corum, decided to forego the bowl, or we're out, without JJ McCarthy because he decided to go, take his talents elsewhere. I mean, that right there, I love and hate that I'm getting hype about a bowl, but is everybody going to participate? And what does the NIL, how much of the NIL is going to keep that student involved in the whole entire season and the postseason? I don't know. I'm curious about your thoughts on that too, because I know Iowa. I'm sure that you had players that you were like, oh, they're fully invested in this bowl, and you're seeing them all of a sudden. Oh, well, I'm going to pass on this bowl because I'm going to hire an agent and get ready for the NFL draft.
Yeah, I mean that definitely happened, and so I totally get it from a player's perspective. They don't want to get injured, but I mean, when you look at then leading up to the draft, all of the different things that they do as well, they could get hurt. David Ojabo got hurt and all that, and so I totally get it. Yeah, but it does take it the bowl games down a notch when if it's not one of the championship games, you don't have some of the top players, and so that's kind of selling it to the fan base. We want to see some of the younger players. But when I look at versus Kentucky, Iowa's running back, he didn't end up playing, and because he was going to try to prepare for the NFL draft, and then he didn't end up getting drafted, and so
you saw that with Kenny Pickett for UCLA. He didn't end up playing. He was getting ready for the draft. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so you're right. Like I totally get those things, but it does kind of take it down a notch then. So it would be interesting, say they have the NIL and to get the full money, you have to play the full season. And that would be something interesting to see some of these contracts, because I did end up talking to actually a podcaster who was roommates with a current Nebraska football player, and he had shared a little bit that it's more for the younger players now that it's used as a recruiting technique, right? To get them there. But it's just, he said it's a good thing, but he does, he's kind of he wasn't a, main star player, so he wasn't getting a bunch of money. So it's a good thing, but you have to kind of look at that. Some of these contracts may even overlap to say they can't have another one or this or that. And so that's going to be interesting to see if the NCAA, steps in and tries to regulate to say, okay, and maybe even like protect these players. Cause I don't know about you, when I think it was 18, 19, 20, 21, I didn't have the wherewithal to really think about the overall implications. I mean, some of these contracts I'm sure have to be longer, right? And you just, I mean, you don't, read everything. You're like, okay, or, or maybe if you hire a lawyer, you're trusting that lawyer to read everything. And so there's a lot that goes into it that when you think of young players, you want them to get the best deal. And because really, I mean, there's a shelf life in this game. I mean, we love football, but whether it's in college football or NFL, there's a shelf life, and especially running backs. I mean, that obviously, so
we're seeing them getting drafted way down the draft line. We're seeing running backs now more and more day 2, late, if that. More key pickups have been defense. We're seeing kickers getting picked up last year and the year before. More so last year in the draft. Saw kickers go before a running back. So yes, there is a shelf life on there, and yes, these young men need to get people to lawyers, especially those that they trust, to read the contracts, because the one thing they think about, obviously, money. I mean, we'd be a fool on this show right now to say that money is not the ultimate motivator, right? So them making sure that they get somebody to look at the contract and make sure that that's not being taken advantage of, because that person is where they are literally carrying their family on their back to move their family out of a horrible situation to a better situation. But they need to know what situation they're getting into when it comes to their contracts. And they got somebody to read the fine print. And a lot of times we're hearing about these former players, unfortunately, going broke because of the fact they didn't read the fine print. And it's a sad story at the end.
So, this is an interesting transition. Obviously, you're a Lions fan, and that's kind of been a sad story.
Shirts, and then I want to talk about the pain.
We talked about sad stories that made me think about the Lions, and I do have the Freezing for NFC North podcast on Wednesdays, and it's interesting. Our Lions guy, who's been our main guy, he actually is also a Dolphins fan. But we talk about
smart.
Well, the Lions are actually his backup team. We kind of brought him in, and but
keep it back
up. But when you look at the Lions, I've been someone who has been high on their offensive talent, their skilled players. And when they have Jameson Williams coming back, they really have, a core offensively, to really do well. Defensively, that's going to be another, case going forward as well. What, as a Michigan fan, what was that like to see Aiden Hutchinson go to the Lions?
Oh, I lost my mind. I'm so excited. That was nothing but fate. Him being a Michigan guy, literally. There in the state of Michigan is where he's from. Played at Michigan like his father did, the great Chris Hutchinson. And then to get drafted right there at number 2, that was a sign. I was so excited about that. And I just wish that he would Aaron Glenn would let him unleash and just play to the potential, because the last several games that I've seen them literally have disappeared. And I'm going, okay, what is going on with our defensive core? And you and I had talked about before the show, they can miss me with the whole injuries and all of that. It happens to almost every team. But when does the light bulb turn on for us to get it? And that's the frustrating part, that right now, as we sit 1-5, When do we get it? when does it happen? When does the light bulb turn on? Or 1 and 4 or 5, whatever we are.
You're giving them the loss during the bye.
This bye. Hopefully they figure out something. There's a lot of talent on this team. I will say that. I was very excited about Aiden Hutchinson coming on this team. I was really excited about Malcolm Rodriguez, Oklahoma State, coming out of this team. I'm looking forward still to have, hopefully after the see some mass improvement. It's giving our players a chance to rest. The horrible injury, and thank you God that he was able to move all his extremities, Savion Smith, from that hit that he took and how he landed on his neck. Freaked me completely out, and I'm so glad that he was he's okay and he's resting comfortably and doing well. There's question marks. I just have a ton of question marks, more so this year than years past. And I know people are going to be like, saying what you won. Y'all won 3 games last year. You won 2 games the year before that. You have question marks. I do. We were featured on Hard Knocks. I was nervous about that because I hear people say that when their teams are featured on Hard Knocks, it's a Hard Knocks curse and their teams do terrible. It has not affected our team whatsoever. We're still, they look promising. Week 1 against Philadelphia in the 4th quarter, and that comeback lost by 3. They did really good against the Commanders. They may be nervous in the 4th quarter. It looked like they were going to lose it. They did it. They looked really good. I was hoping that they would go and take charge against Minnesota and to let Kirk Cousins just tear them apart like they did, and that team like they did. I was like, what in the world? And in Seattle, Geno Smith was waiting. I don't know, it was a mess. Like I just couldn't believe how well Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks played against a team, and then don't even let me speak about how a third-string quarterback just destroyed us, and we didn't get not 1 point on the board to go for it on 4th and 9 when there was tons of time left. Like I'm just questionable plays week after week, and Campbell is taking the blame on himself. But just like, okay, you're taking the blame on yourself week after week, but when is the turnaround coming? Is it going to come hopefully after this bye week? When is the improvements coming? When is it all take place? So I'm still invested in this team, but I'm here in Texas. I live 25, 30 minutes away from AT&T Stadium. You know what's coming next. I've already got Cowboy fans chirping at my ears. Hey, guess what? 7. So I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna win another game this season. I don't know.
You'll beat the Bears. You'll beat the Bears. I like that. That's one thing. I am a Bears fan. Try to be realistic. And when I look at offensively, there were a lot of good things that I saw from Justin Fields. This past week. So a lot of good things, but offensively, I just don't know if they have, if Swift is healthy and to that's obviously a big, key to kind of match up with them. I felt bad for my guy, Amir Smith-Marset, my Iowa guy. He should have gone out of bounds. Hopefully he continues to get another opportunity with the Bears. And so I think the Bears are, and the Bears are missing a lot of talent kind of overall. They just have to continue to build that with the previous regime, what they, had the lack of what they had provided. Yeah. So when you look at it, I see the Lions, at least beating the Bears at least one time. But when you look at Dan Campbell as a coach, do you trust him, number one? And, if they were to, maybe only win a couple games again this year, does he survive at the end of the season, as the coach?
The fire Dan Campbell chants need to stop, because here's the thing. We've had a basically it's like the revolving door that you see at those, hotels, department stores, where it's the revolving door over and over again. I like to call it from the wonderful classic cartoon, the cartoon Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and you have those Island of Misfit toys. We have the Island of Misfit coaches. We've had so many of them that have came on this team. The previous one that we just lost to was there for 2.5 seasons. we can go further back and talk about Jim Schwartz, Jim Caldwell, who we should have kept. We were winning, and that decision was made. I don't understand that decision still to this day. Dan Campbell continues to try to figure it out. I mean, it was kneecap season and we only won 2 games. This season we're at grit and we're 1-4. He's a guy that wants this team to win. He is putting his heart and soul in his team to win. The questions that I have is the decision making when it comes to play calling, to Jared Goff's ability. I mean, mind you, I watch these games when they are televised here in Texas. I have, the Fire Stick, so now I stream it, and I'm able to see it. And every single time, like, it's just amazes me how many points the Lions have scored. But the record is what it is. It is outstanding to me. And last week, offensively, the offense was I was just shook. Like, I'm like, God, this is phenomenal. It's just our defense was just a train wreck. And then this past weekend, it was altogether a dumpster fire. I'm rocking with Dan Campbell because of the fact that if we get rid of him, we're going to have to rebuild again. It's wash, rinse, repeat. It's wash, rinse, repeat. It's wash, rinse, repeat every 3 years. If the coach stays on there that long. I don't know. And I've seen, and I've been in many conversations where frustrated Lions fans are like, sell the team. The Ford family needs to let go of this team. They're not hiring the right people. Their control is absolutely ridiculous. Sheila Ford Hamp doesn't know what she's doing. So many things in the chat. And, but my big thing is, okay, what are we going to do to turn this team around? What is it? Because we literally this cursed. Like, literally, people have compared my squad to the Kennedys and said that we're cursed.
Wow.
Yes. Just like, when does this curse end? And it can be the Bobby Laney curse, where I would say 55, 56, where we traded him to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he said, walking out of the office, that we will never, ever, ever, ever win a postseason or never win a Super Bowl. Okay.
Wow. I had not heard that.
Yes. And so, is the curse real? Has the black cloud, the dark cloud over, Ford Field, has it been, previously the Silver Dome? Is it still present with the Detroit Lions? And it's unfortunate. I rock with this team, and this is my team, every day till the wheels fall off. But it is so frustrating week after week when you see the potential, and then the injuries just pile up, and then, just teams taking advantage of our defense, and you don't know which offense is going to show up. You don't know which Jared Goff is going to show up. The weapons there. TJ Hawkinson has been a bright spot. Swift, when he's healthy, has been a bright spot. But it hasn't been consistent. When is the consistency on the good side is going to happen? We've seen the consistency for years of the losses and the missed opportunities and the coaches and the quarterbacks that have been in and out. I mean, I'm still salty. I'm still sore that we swapped quarterbacks with the Rams, and the one that we had for 12 years got his ring in 1 year. You take it as it comes. I'm dedicated. I'm a dedicated Honolulu Blue and Silver fan to the day. But it's just so frustrating to be a fan.
Well, at least you have the Wolverines, and definitely,
Exactly.
I appreciate you coming on. Where can everyone find you again, Marisa?
Oh, awesome! Thank you for having me on. I am on Instagram at Marisa Tigney Podcast, Marisa_Tigney_podcast. I'm on Twitter at Lovely Marisa. You can find me on Heard That with Marisa Tigney podcast on all podcast platforms, as well as on the YouTube channel, Heard That with Marisa Tigney, and online, heardthatwithmarisa.com. I love to hear all kinds of ideas and get feedback from people. And my show is for fans. We talk about top trending topics that are out there of sport, pop culture. So I'm not a journalist. I just like to connect with people. People have stories. People have gripes and vents and all of that. So I take everything that they talk about and top trending topics and talk about it on my show. So I thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it. It was great chatting with you.
Absolutely. You too. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. And I'll give you one last Michigan chant.
Listen, all day, every day, go blue. We're beating Penn State this weekend. Go blue.
Once again, it's been Outdated Cover 2 series on the Michigan Wolverines. Thanks again, Marisa Tigney.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.